Welcome back to 4 Geeks by Geeks, the place where geeks come to geek out. Happy Tuesday, everyone. For all of you joining us live here on live chat on Twitch, we're remixing, like in the comments on Instagram today, Wicca Wicca remix, just because it worked out that way. I was busy yesterday, so couldn't do it yesterday. And so I'm glad that our geek guest tonight was flexible enough to join us on a Tuesday, but I'm excited. I'm really excited to keep this flow going of our Geek Out sessions in 2026. But how are all of you? And I'm trying to figure out what's that thing on the bottom of my screen over here. Oh, I see. I know what you are. I know what you are. Bye. Bye. There we go. Anyway, hi, I'm Bozer. If this is your first Geek Out sesh, we're just meeting. I enjoy long walks on the beach as long as there are seashells to collect and not very busy. That'd be great. Especially now, I'm in the Midwest. We are in the deep heart of whatever winter is coming, has come, and we are out here surviving with our lives. So I hope all of you are warmer than I am. It is like negative degrees, especially if you're near Chicago. What in the hell is happening? You guys are dealing with like negative 30. I'm just thinking about C2 happening later in March, and like I can't get out of the cold in my mind because I'm thinking, oh man, I hope it's not this cold in March. Of course it's not going to be this cold in March. But it's like sunk that deep into my bones. Like Mosaic Pants. Arctic Hell. Yes. Let's see if this works. Hey, we can even see it down there. Arctic Hell. But if this is your first Geek Out Sesh, we do this each and every week, except for the weeks that we don't. And we have brand new geek guests to geek out about their cosplay, about their game design, about their artistry, or tonight, about writing, about the author. So I'm really excited to geek out with our guest tonight. You'll meet her in just a moment. But while you're hanging out in the chat, go ahead and hit that QOTD. I want to know, what is a sci-fi item, because we're talking all about sci-fi tonight, that should exist by now in 2026? I'm sure your feeds look something like mine, and like I'm getting all these throwback videos of people on the news and like 20 years ago showing off inventions that will be in the future. Some of them do exist. Some of them are nowhere. Like that was a prototype and it's never gone anywhere. Or they're like the iPhone is a much improved version of whatever they had on the news show 20 years ago. But there's so many sci-fi things. Like we're reading and watching all these things that are full of inventions that whether the year is 2026, like Back to the Future, or it's far beyond, like in a galaxy far, far away. What's something that should exist by now? Like DSB says, where's my damn electric car? Thank you. I mean, we do have electric cars, but my problem is they don't fly. Everything said we'd have flying cars by now. Also, where are the doors that go whoosh, whoosh? I just want my door to whoosh. And where's my flying skateboard and self-tying shoes? Though, did they just come out with self-tying shoes? Correct me if I'm wrong. Keep that going. But feel free to hang out in the chat all night long. This is a conversation. And if you're watching this back on YouTube or listening on podcast, join the conversation. Come join us live here on Twitch, typically Monday nights at 8:30, but tonight it's Tuesday, 8:30. And if you're ever not sure, just check our socials. I'll try to keep you up to date. Unfortunately, T is not able to join us for tonight. It's very soon that he'll be able to jump back in. His life is actually really awesome, what he's doing, and I'm going to let him share his own news in his own time. But we're all really happy for him, and it means that life is becoming a little more calmer for him so that he can get back into what he loves, geeking out with all of you. So I'm really glad all of you are here, like DSB, like Mosaic Pants. Chime in the chat if you're here so we can say hi. Or if you just want to lurk, that's fine too. We honor that. Because I definitely think tonight's conversation is going to be a really interesting one. Self-tailoring clothes. Yes. Thank you. Sorry, the chat is just my ADHD kryptonite. Hydrating pizzas? Oh yeah, like the food, you could just boop. Yes. I want it. I want it all. I'm not smart enough to be able to tell you how to do it, but I would definitely be a consumer in the future if all of these things existed. But I know you didn't come here just to hear me ramble, unless you did, then I'm sorry. That's not what I'm going to be doing here. You actually came here to hear from someone much more knowledgeable and capable than I. We actually met at Mysticon back in October when T and I went and emceed Mystical Cauldron in Carlsbad, California. She was a vendor there, and we made sure that we went around to the vendor aisles, an artist alley, and kind of checked them out and got some contacts because we knew that we wouldn't have enough time in that moment to hang out as long as we wanted. So I'm really excited to be able to get that time now with tonight's guest. So please give it up in the chat. I want to see some emojis. I want to see some clapping. Just do a little applause at home and wake the neighbors. Please welcome in my guest tonight, Dhara. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do as a geek.
What did I say? Oh, I expressed about how that question sends me into an existential crisis. Now that everyone asked that a lot of me, but I am Dhara. I'm a reader. I'm a writer. I was born and raised in India. I moved to the US about 14 years ago, and been writing fiction for about 10 years now. Basically, I'm just a nerd at heart. I love playing video games, board games, love spending time, losing time, wasting time into deep rabbit holes about anything that grabs my attention, any shiny piece of new information. That's the geekiest thing I do.
Okay, what
Just
was the
going on
last
Google
deep
and
dive?
Wikipedia.
What was the last thing that just had you spiraling until like 3 a.m.?
Oh, I think it was about this new narrative structure in writing books that I learned about. It's called a braided structure where the narration comes in pieces. It also happens in movies, but it's like it was introduced by literature. So I just deep dove into it, found all the movies and books that does that, found ways to do it, learning it. Yeah, hours and hours after just something as small as a narrative structure.
I'm so glad that you have like enough space in your life to like deep dive into those things because that like you put that right back into your work, right?
Yeah, yeah. And that's the great thing about being a writer. Most of it you can use it.
Like
Most of the
everything,
deep
right?
dives and
Like
yeah.
everything you come in contact with, every person you meet,
Hmm.
every bad day, that goes towards
Yeah.
your writing.
Yep. So I shouldn't say wasting time, just spending time.
Yeah, it's all how you spend it. Or would you say like deep diving,
Yeah.
falling in rabbit holes?
Deep diving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then at heart you are a nerd at heart. You love all these nerdy things,
Mhm.
but like the main thing you're funneling that into now is writing, correct?
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about that. Talk to us about like what first got you started in writing. Take us back to Baby the Ra. When
Yeah.
did you begin writing? You said
Uh,
about 10 years ago?
I started writing fiction 10 years ago. I've been writing for a long time. Um, Not as a child, as a lot of writers and authors that I know do. I wasn't introduced to it or I didn't have that upbringing, but I remember I was doing an internship in Mumbai and I was having a really rough day. I was going back to my hometown, which is like 3.5 hours from 3.5 hours from Mumbai, and just something didn't sit right. I was feeling suffocated, emotionally drained, so I just flipped my ticket and started like writing something on it. And I think that's the first thing I remember writing, which was not just like stating out facts or information, and it
Mm-hmm.
came out as a poetry. And I felt so light after doing that, as if I had found a new language to express myself. So I think that's how I started
And it all
writing.
started on the back of a
And then I
ticket.
started writing a train ticket, which is
Yeah,
like used to be this big at the time,
right.
like this big white patch of paper. So um, yeah, that's how I started. And then I started writing poetry. I started a blog, which was a thing in 2000s, 2010s.
Wait,
Um,
were you on Zanga?
Not Zenga,
Oh, okay.
Blogger, just
Okay.
blogger.com. Yeah, Blogspot.
I'm still trying to find my Zanga babies
But,
out there. Sorry, go on.
uh, and then around 10 years ago, when I moved to San Diego from the Bay Area, that's when I started writing fiction.
And what kind of fiction did you start with?
Science fiction. I mean, the basic idea, the first very basic idea I had, which was an Earthing Idol, wasn't a science fiction. It was just a contemporary story about someone finding their place in the society. But then I was obsessed with space. I was obsessed with science, sci-fi, and I thought I was too afraid at the time to just put myself out there in contemporary fiction. So I thought, oh, this could be a nice armor in a way, like sci-fi. So that's how I got into conveying that story in the form of science fiction.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
But
Like it was a form of armor instead of like just straight up contemporary fiction.
uh, so basically, I grew up in India and I never quite fitted in. I mean, there was a evolving throughout my journey of writing and finishing my book,
Sure.
but I was a staunch individualist and I grew up in a very collectivist society, so I never quite fit in. And that ate me up all my childhood, all my early 20s. So I wanted to talk about that, but I wasn't brave enough to write it the way I felt it. Like, oh, I cannot just write, oh, I grew up in this town and I don't quite fit in, and I don't quite fit in into the norms and the gender norms that I was pushed into. And I just felt afraid to do that directly. So I thought, oh, instead of India, I could show an asteroid. Instead of my
Oh.
hometown, I can make an asteroid colony. Instead of myself, I could create a fiction character who's living in outer space. And instead of like collectivism versus individualism, I just make this two very contrasting world with the dystopian Earth and utopian asteroid. And that was just the starting point for me with science fiction, and then it like moved way beyond what I started with or the reasoning behind it. But that's how I felt at the beginning, like science fiction could be a armor. Like I don't have to directly talk about things and use gadgets and technology and space to convey the day-to-day ideas.
Did that help at the start? Like, did you have any family like backlash against you? Like, okay, I know what you're doing, or did you find that like people from like where you're from like eat it up?
I don't I don't think so. No. People have always been kind about it,
Oh, good.
and a lot of people just say, "Oh, I relate to it," because I think everyone faces that once in a while, and I think that it was more about, "Oh, I feel that too," than, "Oh, how dare you." But I'm sure it's also because I'm still very niche.
Mm-hmm.
If if I'm probably mainstream, I might get that backlash. I don't know.
Yeah, there's kind of like that safety in the small niches, right? Like
Yeah.
even on this channel, like we're very small here, and I kind of like it
Yeah.
because then there's less people to see
Yeah.
that I just had 20 minutes of technical difficulties.
You won't be viral for it.
Right, we can all just laugh about it, and no one will know. And tomorrow,
Yeah.
um, no, but I get that. So why did you start with like science fiction? Because when I think of science fiction, my brain
Mhm.
kind of melts a little bit. Like thinking of world building in that era and that genre, there's just so much that it could be.
Mhm.
Um, and science, not my strong
Mhm.
suit. So why was that your first go-to area?
Um, so in India, after you finish your 10th grade, which is, what do you call it here? First
Sophomore?
sophomore?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have to select a stream. Either you go into sciences or you go into commerce, which is business math, and or either you go to arts. And arts was, of course, very it got the bad rap, like, oh, dumb kids do arts.
Yup.
So, and the whole Asian culture about how you're supposed to just do something productive with your life. So I had those two choices, and I was always gravitated towards sciences.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's also very, very, very challenging in India to pursue that. And my parents knew. We were not those. I was not that studious kid who would like come home after school every day and do studying and do homework regularly. I was the one who would like wake up the night before the exam all night and study everything just the night before
Yeah,
and give the exams and pass. So
it's
my
easier to
parents were
remember
like,
that way.
"No, you're not meant for this." Yeah. And my parents was like the the other way around. Usually the parents in India will push you to pursue sciences, but my parents were the other way around, like, "Oh, you're not meant for this. You'll like destroy yourself. Just do commerce. It's easier and go for it." So I was not allowed to pursue science.
Hmm.
And that stayed with me because even though I pursued commerce, which is I did my MBA, I did my hospitality, just science was something that's just kept grabbing my attention because it's just, for me, it was one way to understand the universe, which I had lots of questions about. So I was gravitated towards science and then astronomy, and that led me to read more science fiction books. And I read all kinds of science fictions, the classics with space opera, where it's not even science, it's more fantasy, like Star Wars, to meaningful science fiction by Ursula Le Guin and the women writers Octavia Butler. And I thought it was a great vehicle to express ideas from the contemporary world. And I just feel like science um, and fiction are both the best way to fall in love with the universe, like or get your answers out of it. Like they give you, if you need to be more poetic or need more mythic answers, you have fiction, and if you need more factual answers, more mathematical answers from the universe, there is science. And when you mix that, you get the best part.
You get like this incredible
So yeah,
world that can like be the best of both worlds. Do you
yeah,
pull from that in like your
exactly.
writing, like while you're writing these stories? If you need
Mhm.
something that like kind of grounds the characters or grounds the story, you lean into the science, and if you want more of that epic adventure, you have the fiction.
With me, it comes easier to me to start with characters and the story itself, because for me, it's always story first and character first, and sci-fi is just something that's driving the story forward. So I usually come up with my actual base story and the characters, and then I look for the best scientific way to carry that forward,
Mm.
instead of going the other way around. I feel like, for me at least, science is just the engine that drives the story forward. It's not the plot.
Oh,
Unless you're
okay.
writing hard science fiction, which
Yeah.
is just like the jargon and like how things work and how things are supposed to work. Even then, I think for a fiction story to work, there should be some emotional quotient to it. Like The Martian, it was very hard science fiction book, but then there's this guy who's very funny on the Mars and trying to grow potatoes from his own waste. So I think that's what drove the story forward.
I didn't read the book. I did see the movie. Matt
Well,
Damon was
yeah,
great.
yeah. Hmm.
So
But
okay,
it's a very hard science fiction book.
put that into terms in like one of your actual stories, whether it's Unearthing Ideal or uh,
Mhm.
tell us
The
about you.
Cosmic Empire.
Thank you. You have a couple published
Mhm.
works. Um, pick one
Yeah.
of those and kind of walk us through your process in how that story came to develop along those same lines.
Um, my first book took more than 8 years, so it was very chaotic, and I went back and forth and did a lot of things with it. So at this point, it's just like a homogeneous memory that I have of how I came to it. But I remember that,
Yeah.
like I told you, I started with a just regular story about this one character who didn't quite fit in the society that she grew up in,
Mm-hmm.
and she wanted to escape that society. And then I wanted to make it science fiction. So at first, there was this big planet outside of Earth, but then it's also grew into a story about two characters from two different worlds, and I wanted them to be able to communicate with each other frequently, so they needed to be closer. And then I thought of an asteroid, and how can I pull an asteroid that's usually asteroid is revolving much farther from Earth, and when
Mm-hmm.
they are circling around the sun, they grow wide as the orbit changes. So I wanted something that's constantly around the Earth. So I had this idea about pulling the asteroid into the Earth orbit. So the way moon revolves around
Mm-hmm.
Earth, this orbit also revolves around Earth as a second moon. And that's how the basic concept of unearthing idol took place. And then I wanted to show these two contrasting worlds where there's this dystopian corporatized world, Earth, and a utopian harmonious asteroid colony.
I thought you said
And
this was
that's where the
fiction.
science came in. It is.
That's Earth.
I know. I see
What
what
do you
you mean.
mean? Just kidding.
Actually, at least 10 years ago when I started this, it wasn't. For example, there was this one scene where one of my characters just wanted to read a book, and books are considered contraband in that world. So this
Ooh.
other character just types in, "Oh, what kind of book do you want to read?" "Oh, I want to read a mystery, and it should be funny and it should be inspiring." So he just puts these three words into the phone, and it creates a whole book out of it after those three words, and he just gives that book to the friend. And that was 10 years ago, and now it's a reality.
Now.
And when I wrote that scene, I there is a disclaimer on my book on the first page. None of this is written by an AI, and it was meant to be as a joke because at that time it wasn't a thing. I wrote it as a joke that it wasn't, because there is a scene in my book where a technology writes the book for you,
Right.
but it wasn't a thing back then. This
And
was 2015.
now that's like an actual fear.
Thing, yeah. So that's what I love about science fiction.
That's
It like it
funny.
warns you. It warns you about, yeah, it just warns you sometimes. And I use those bits to develop my world scientific bits. And then there was this asteroid where I wanted to develop a whole ecosystem, but also scientifically valid researched ecosystem. That's where I fell into a lot of rabbit holes, and that's how it took 8 years. But everything on the
Okay.
asteroid is like how you get your oxygen and water is all scientific. And I reached out to scientists and an astronomer to verify the science of the book, which they did. And yeah,
So you're saying that 100% of the science in your stories is like scientifically verified or could be
not
possible?
all the stories. The Unearthing Idol itself,
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's accurate because it's fiction too. Uh,
Sure. We don't
but
have an
the
asteroid
basic
floating around.
concepts, yeah. Sorry.
Right. We don't have an asteroid floating around, but we could. Or I
Yeah,
guess the moon is
no,
technically
yeah,
an asteroid, kind of, right?
yeah, yeah, satellite, yeah, kind
Yeah.
of big asteroid. So not all of it is like something that happens in real world, but they are based off of actual scientific principles
Yeah.
and physics. Yeah. So that could happen if we work towards it, or if nature is in our favor, or the space is in our favor.
Yeah, I was gonna ask like what took writing the book 8 years, but clearly, if like you're trying to put that level of actual scientific data in it, and like when you started the
Yeah.
book, that wasn't like that was an area that you were interested in, but you didn't already have those answers, right? You
Mm,
had to go find them.
right. None of them.
So you are
And it wasn't
learning
the,
astronomy and science while writing this book.
yeah, exactly. I didn't have any academic experience in that on those fields. So
Wow.
yeah,
What was the most
just
interesting
my
scientific
nerd.
fact that you learned while writing Unearthing Idol?
Ooh, hmm. Let me think about
I
it.
didn't give you this one ahead of time. I told you some of these are gonna be off the cuff.
Oh, that's fine. No, that's fine. I mean, I learned a lot of things. So just the basic fact, I think this I knew at some level because I learned about how the International Space Station works.
Mm-hmm.
But this the idea that in a confined colony or like International Space Station, any kind of humidity, like your sneezes or your waste or your sweat, can be turned into drinkable water. Um, it just fascinates me because look at your face. Um, I mean, it's a very basic concept, and almost anyone who reads science fiction avidly knows this, but it's just something when I dove deeper into it and when I applied that principle to the asteroid where there was thousands of tons of water, it still stands true that yeah, they could basically recycle the water again and again over decades and use that same water in that confined colony. So that's something that was, I'm sure there was something much more enlightening that I learned, but I just cannot think of it right now.
That's fine.
Besides
Because
how gravity works too, like gravity too.
right, like all these things that like you should have learned in school, or at least I should have learned in school and paid attention to, but completely went
I'm sure
in
they
one
teach.
ear, out the other. But now
Mm.
when it's actually like a project you care about, isn't it so interesting how all
Uh-huh.
of a sudden we're so ready to learn and research up until the all the night through because
Yeah,
oh well, it doesn't matter. That's
yeah. That's
interesting.
there's actually a thing where science fiction brings people closer to science. There's been studies where they, like, scientists have been asked how they pursued those fields, like astronomers and anthropologists and paleontologists, and they usually say that they were inspired from a science fiction show like Doctor Who or Jurassic World, or iRobot. So science fiction has actually brought people closer to science and people pursuing science in real life. So that's also one of the great things about this genre is it makes you care about scientific things in a fun way.
Yeah, that that makes me want to
Yeah.
read some science fiction. I'm not a great reader, Thora. I will admit it
Yeah.
takes me forever to get through a book because I just can't keep my focus on it. So I feel bad when we have
Like a,
like author guests come on the show and I'm like, yeah, I'm totally gonna read that book. It's not because I don't want to read that book. I just know I won't.
no,
Um,
I get it.
do you have an audiobook coming out? Could you read the book to me?
Not not right now, but that's my future goal. I
Ooh,
want to get a audio narrator, and they are very expensive. I want to
I
get a good
imagine.
one, so I'm waiting until I'm able to afford that, a good narrator. And I definitely want to do audiobooks in the near future.
How about I'll do it for you just so that I can assure that I'll read it through. I can't guarantee how great
That's
it's going to
awesome.
be, but
I'll definitely take you up on it.
we'll
You're a
be in
great.
touch.
Yeah,
You'll have to
let's
help
do
me
it.
with the pronunciation of maybe like 90% of the words, but we'll get there.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I can start with short stories.
Okay, we'll talk. We'll talk after. Hey, take it away, Future Bozer. Thanks, Future Bozer. We'll get right back to tonight's Geek Out Sesh, but first, a short break where we're able to check in on some past Geek Out Sesh alumni and find out some exciting updates. Tonight, we're hearing from author A.G. Flitcher. What are you up to, A.G.?
Hi, I'm A.G. Flitcher, here representing Team Gryffindor. My book, Wasp Oil, encompasses the brutality and softness of anger with strong characters and a skin-crawling demon. So if you love books with a haunting atmosphere and horror and fantasy, this is the book for you.
And now, back to you, Future Bozer. All right, so that's Unearthing Idol. Give us like the quick synopsis of that one, just for anybody that's like, oh, that sounds interesting. Give us a little more of a hook so that they can understand why they should definitely use Command Dhara or use the description below and go get it.
At its core, Unearthing Idol is about misfits finding their place in society. Um, and it could be any society, like it opens a dialogue about utopia versus dystopia. What is it? Like one person dystopia can be another person's utopia. So how do we define a perfect world? So that's the name of the book, Unearthing Idol. Idol is an optimum paradise or utopia. So how do we discover that perfect world, or how do we even define it? So that's what the book opens the dialogue about. But the plot is about these two characters on completely contrasting colony and utopian asteroid versus a dystopian Earth, and how their paths cross, how they find friendships in darkness, and how they eventually find their role in their own society.
Sign me up. No, I love that because it's fiction, it's science, it's philosophy, it's like
It is.
psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably went and got an
And
MBA in all
political.
of those fields and political just to
Yeah.
write this one book that took 8 years. That is a
Yeah. Yeah.
labor of love.
Yeah.
So 8 years later,
Thank
you
you.
finish the book. Was it what you
Yeah,
expected it would be when you started?
much better than I expected. But also lately, I've been turning my paperback into a hardback version because people keep requesting for it. So I've been editing my interior to turn it into a hardcover. And I'm so tempted to go back and change like dozens and dozens of things in there because I've grown so much since then again,
Mm-hmm.
which was just 2 years ago. I want to go and change little things. And, oh, this doesn't sound right, or this doesn't, I could frame it better in a better way. And of course, I'll always have that. All writers do. So, um, but if you ask me if if it's better than I expected, it is. Yeah,
Well, then on that note,
it is.
2 years ago, after you took 8 years to finish the book, how did
Mhm.
you know it was done at that time?
Deadline.
There
uh,
it is, kids. Chase your dreams
yeah,
until your deadline, then turn it in.
I was signed with a traditional publisher who gave me a deadline because they wanted to publish the book,
Yeah.
and eventually I didn't go with them, but they actually helped me finish the book because they gave me a hard deadline.
Okay.
But also at that point, I just wanted to get it out because I wanted to work on other stories.
Okay,
So
so then what were those
two
other
weeks.
stories? Because I know that you also have Cosmic Campfire. So that came after
Yeah.
Unearthing Idol?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
Um,
give us the quick elevator speech about that one just for context.
it's a collection of 5 stories. Each features a different sci-fi subgenre. So there is time travel. One story is about space exploration. Another is about steampunk adventure. Another is about virtual reality. So different sci-fi subgenre, like a platter, sci-fi platter.
Yeah, it's like a buffet.
um, so yeah, my intention was with that collection was to entice more readers to science fiction genre. Um, as big as it is on TV and in cinema, science fiction is still not a widely read genre, especially where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to introduce people, non-sci-fi readers, to the genre without intimidating them and show them what the basic frameworks of science fiction are. At the same time, I also wanted to give something to avid sci-fi readers. So there's some political, some again philosophical, psychological, existential themes that I've explored with each of those stories.
I, if you haven't gathered already, the Ra is light years ahead of me intellectually. And so, like, as I'm listening to all that, I'm just trying to imagine, could I understand it? Um, Even though, yes, obviously
You,
I could. I love those kinds of things, especially time
yeah,
travel, the steampunk. But that is like, I got to imagine that as a writer, you, even within the sci-fi genre, you probably would fall within like some sect of it, right?
yeah,
Like, is it
exactly.
space travel? Is it time travel? Is it steampunk? But you you're like divergent. You can do all five or all
Yeah.
subsects of it. How was that? What kind of research went into that? I'm sure that you never slept for however long it took to write the book.
That book was faster than the first one because I've learned a lot with the first book.
Yeah.
So it was less challenging, of course, and it was half the size too. So not as nerve wracking, but research. Um, I think another thing still like had a lot of research because it was a big book and it's a universe. It's a part of Asymptote universe. There's gonna be other books in that series. With the short stories, because it's short, I don't
Hmm.
have to go too deep into developing the world. I
Right.
just have to like the basics. I still did it and ended up doing a lot more than I should have because I just like knowing what's happening around.
Because you can't help it.
But yeah, I can't help it. But the research was it was I loved it. Like the first story is a time travel story, so I was already obsessed with time travel as ever since I knew what it was. So I knew the basic time travel paradoxes and the basic time travel frameworks. So I didn't have to research much apart from a few basic things like why like solving the paradox itself. Like if she visited her if she visited her past self, why doesn't she remember that in the future? Things like that, the paradoxes.
And the answer is,
In the story, because there is no answer, that's why it's not.
ah,
I mean, you can find a solution, like you can say, oh, there are multiverses. That's why you don't remember, because every time you make a new decision, you branch
mm-hmm,
into a new reality.
uh-huh.
But in my story, she's just this cranky old woman who's just tired of everything. She's like, I don't care. She's like, I don't do this often, so I don't care. She just gives up,
Okay.
which is, yeah.
But when you're researching things like time travel, like clearly we don't have the ability to like well-worn paths of time travel. It's mostly theoretical and paradoxical. Like how do you
Mhm.
even go about researching that? Or are you just drawing from other science fiction to kind of build on our collective understanding of what it is? How do you look into that?
Well, firstly, the literature, like the authors who basically invented time travel, like reading their stories, all the classic sci-fi books. Um, One of my favorite time traveling stories by H.G. Wells called The Time Machine, which is fantastic. There's been a movie, I think there's been a show
Oh, sure.
based on the book. Yeah, The Time Machine. So the literature, then the internet, where nerds like me come up with everything they have learned, and I hate one of the things I hate about like technology like ChatGPT is that you only know what you want to know, like where you give a prompt, I want to know this, and that's the only information you get.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember in 2015 and 16 when I was learning about time travel or doing any kind of research with my book, I used to end up on this crazy niche sci-fi forums. Like I would search about one thing, and then there would be some other nerd who'd like give out a whole spreadsheet about, oh, look how much this asteroid cost because it has this kind of mineral on it. So that's how I ended up on all this crazy piece of information, and just keep reading and consuming, and it just gives me the basic idea about this basic the subgenres of science fiction and time travel, and yeah, just reading and reading and reading.
That is the cool thing about science fiction is it's not like a historical drama or fiction or
Hmm.
even whatever. You would have actual facts to pull from. But in science
Right.
fiction, like you have facts to base things off of, but then the exploration of those just kind of explodes. And like you need other nerds like yourself to help develop
Yeah.
those, right? Like science fiction doesn't happen in
True.
a
Yeah.
vacuum,
Uh-huh.
especially today, I'd
Definitely
imagine.
not.
I just think that's so
Yeah, and in a
hardcore.
way, you are just yeah, and all I think all scientific science fiction ideas are inspired from an ideas that has already been discussed before, most
Right.
of it. So it's what new you can bring to the genre, and that's why I enjoyed Cosmic Campfire a lot, because it still talks about the classic templates, but then what new I could bring to those frameworks, like time travel, where the character travels her past self to ask her to learn a recipe so she could cook that in the future. Things like that. It could be just fun, like not always about saving the world. Uh,
I love it. And that's
like,
why they're cute
yeah,
campfire
you're very
stories.
right. Sorry?
And that's why they're campfire stories.
Yeah, they're campfire stories. But I love that, what you said about how it doesn't exist in vacuum. Yeah, it definitely doesn't.
So, how much of your upbringing in India do you put into the science fiction? Because as like a, I've lived in, born and raised here in Indiana, and my worldview is very much shaped by growing up in Indiana. But I'm
Right.
really eager to expand that, and so the fact that you can bring all of those differences into your stories, into something that excites me, like science fiction. Um, like if I'm
Hmm.
reading your stories, what maybe I wouldn't recognize it, so that's why I'm asking. What
Hmm.
have you put in there that is like specifically derived, if anything, from your upbringing?
Hmm. Um, so that's the thing. When I started writing science fiction, I didn't want to. I've always had struggle with my personal identity and my cultural identity.
Mm,
They were always at clash with each other. So when I started writing science fiction, I didn't want my cultural identity to be associated with it. So I tried to be I tried to stray away from that aspect of my identity, and it was more about just me exploring science and astronomy and my own inner journey that I've had in my life at that point in time. Um, so that was Unearthing Idol. But it was later that I learned that even though I didn't intentionally adapt things from my culture, there was this subconscious engine that was that of my cultural identity that was driving the story forward in a way. And funnily enough, one of the short stories in Cosmic and Fire is about three spaceships arguing whether cultural identity is important or not for humans. And that's how I ended up writing that story, because that's when I was learning how important it is. And even though I tried running away from it, I couldn't, because it you can't. It is part of you. So when I once I was done with Unearthing Idol, I started writing the short stories, and that's when I tried to put those parts of me, my cultural identity, my experiences. Before, I was also afraid to dig deeper into my history because I don't know what would open up
yeah,
the can of worms.
yeah.
um, so, but then I went on this journey where I started digging into it and sharing about it, and not afraid about sharing about it. And right now, I'm learning how I don't. I learned that there is this constant pressure, especially on brown and black writers, how they have to have something of their cultural identity in their stories, which I think is unfair, because that's not expected of, say, white writers,
Right.
or they are not even. Um, like I recently learned that, think about Shakespeare. Shakespeare wrote from his very cultural point of view, where he was a man of his time, and he wrote from a specific economic and political landscape where he was living in. But that's considered mainstream because it's white. It's not considered like diverse story or ethnic story, even though
Right.
it came from a very specific culture,
Yeah.
just because it's white. But when a black or brown writer does that, it has to come from a specific bubble where they grew up in, or where. So I have had this constant pressure. I felt that pressure, not just from outsiders, but even from my own community, where I was expected to write a very certain specific kind of stories. Um, so there's a lot of like muddling of all those
Yeah.
different point of views, and there's some learning and relearning and trying to just write what I want, not what I'm expected to write. Um, yeah, for example, like the story about time travel, where the character travels for food. A reviewer told me that, oh, it's just about Indian food. Why didn't you include other Indian elements? I expected more out of it. And I was like, food is political for immigrants. Food is very, very political for immigrants who are living outside of their own native homeland. And that's what I wanted to talk about in that story. And I think it's unfair that I'm supposed to like put all my Indianness into my stories. Um,
Yeah. It
so yeah,
sounds
that's
like
what I'm
such
learning in my last.
a wrestle. Like you
Yeah,
started
it is.
this wanting to have your own thing separate from like your own life and just really niche down into
Yeah,
like
just
this
be
interest.
nerdy.
But then you couldn't
Yeah.
help it. Like you found it bled in anyway. So then you were exploring and learning more about yourself and accepting that. But then by doing that, now you've like trapped yourself into this diversity bubble just because
Yeah.
of who you are.
You got it
What?
perfectly. I'm so amazed that you followed the whole chain.
Oh,
That's
I got you.
amazing.
I'm with
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
But then again, to a point, because I am a cis white male in America, there's only so much that I
Mhm.
can like fully understand. I'm just like following at least your line of thought, at least I'm hoping to.
No, you got it completely.
But you brought in
I'm
such a
amazed
cool
that you
point.
followed the change.
I never even thought of that. And maybe it's my cis white maleness. The fact that like,
Mm.
diverse writers, like people of color, are then expected to put that into
Mm-hmm.
their writing. Um,
Right.
is it like the pressure to represent like that community, that because now you have a platform that you have to always like put that in, or what's really driving that expectation, do you think?
I think it's because traditionally, I'll talk about science fiction because we're doing science fiction here.
Yeah.
Traditionally, science fiction authors have been white men. Like all the, if you Google who are the founders of science fiction, you'll get Robert Heinlein, you'll get Arthur C. Clarke, H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, all those big writers who were great. I love their stories. That's how who inspired me to write science fiction. But then in the 60s, there was an influx of women writers. Ursula Le Guin, Octavia Butler, and Margaret Atwood. And then when they came into writing, people expected women-focused stories from them, which I'm so grateful that they wrote it, because that's how I got the confidence that I as a woman can also
Hmm.
pursue science fiction. But I understand the pressure they must have felt, because they couldn't just write about a white man goofing around in space just for the heck of it. They had to write about women forced to carry babies in a dystopian world, or they had to talk about uh, a, a black character traveling to her past where slavery is still existed and she's
Huh.
being enslaved.
Yeah.
So were the pressures they faced, and maybe they wanted to talk about it because no one talked about it for so long, and that's what they wanted to do. So I think there was this pattern where if there is an anomaly introduced into a genre, you are supposed to just talk from that particular point of view. So if I don't, I'm have never faced this prejudice in person, but I can imagine a person who has read all those classic science fiction stories. If they see my book, my cover, and they read Dhara Parekh and oh, she's from India, they will expect some Indianness in it. Like, oh, there should be some Indianness, and that's maybe that is why they pick up the book, because they wanna see a different perspective, or they wanna learn something
Mm-hmm.
different, which is great too. And that is why that pressure is real, because then you have to live up to those expectations, and you don't have to just live up to the expectation of writing a good science fiction, but also this constant pressure: oh, am I doing enough, or am I doing too much, or am I representing in the right way? All those pressures. So uh, yeah, I don't know what was the question, but
No, you answered it,
uh,
because
that,
I think
yeah,
you answered it in a way that is the only way to answer. Like, it's such a ball of twine of anxiety and expectation and obligation and
mhm,
like identity, that I
mhm,
don't think there's any clear way to untangle that, especially you as a full-time writer. Like, your
mhm.
job, your gift, everything that you do, it all revolves around your mind. And
Yeah. Every time I sit at the desk,
and it's not such a clear, like, you can't pick up a hammer and nail and boom, I did the thing. It's
yeah,
done. It's like constantly
mhm,
wrestling with all these thoughts and trying to write something that you enjoy, trying to write something that others will enjoy, but also maybe ask them to question things and to wrestle with things that, like, full-time writers. Thara, you have like my full kudos for taking on the
thank you.
banner of this world. Like, I've never really seen it so. I don't want to be arrogant enough to say clearly, but I've never heard it put in this way that helped me understand what you guys are going through as writers, let alone of a person of color in the writing scene. Wow. Hot damn.
It's fun. I enjoy
Is
this
it?
discourse as well.
Is
I mean, of course, it's
it?
life draining, but at the same time, it's what makes me a writer too, because then
Yeah.
I'm able to bring this perspective into my writing that maybe not everyone can, and then that helps me set apart my writing as well in a way. Um, yeah, it's two side of the coin,
Mm-hmm. And
double-edged sword, all the cliches.
you got to use them. Because your writing has been catching some attention, if I'm not incorrect. Um, recently, I think you got some kudos. Do you want to share some of that for context?
Oh, yeah, and it's good that you asked this right after the discussion we had because so I recently the last story that I worked on, um, I submitted it to a couple of sci-fi speculative magazines, the prestigious ones, and one of those magazines, the Writers of the Future, which is sort of like an Oscar for speculative sci-fi short stories. They have it's a long-running magazine, I think since the 60s.
Okay.
They I received an silver honorable mention for that short story.
Okay.
And they asked me if I could edit and resubmit it to be considered for the finals, which is what I did. And I'm waiting to hear back from them. But yeah, they have a very low acceptance rate, so I'm very happy. But at the same time, I'm upset that I just got a mention, not a final nod yet. So I don't know, but it's the story that I've written just for me. Like I didn't worry about being Indian, or I didn't worry about the expectations, or
Cool.
um, whatever we discussed before. It's the most personal story I've written, and it's still the most Indian story I've written in a way, but also the most nerdy story in a way. And I loved it. Loved writing that story so much.
Well,
And I
congratulations
think
on
it
that.
wouldn't have happened without the discourse that I've had.
Say that last part again.
I wouldn't have written that story without the discourse that I've had in my head all this time, the one we talked about.
Yeah.
Like I said, how it's also good in a way, because that's what I was talking about. Like without going through that whole journey, I wouldn't have written that story, because that's how I landed on this perfect equilibrium of just being myself as a writer, but at the same time not abandoning my culture or my roots or my background or my experiences.
So now that they've asked for a resubmission, like to fix some things,
Mhm.
how
Yeah.
stressful is that? And like
Uh,
what I'm really wanting to know is, because especially I love that you said it's the most personal, the most like, I wasn't worrying about making sure I represented anything. I just put myself out there. And now they're like,
mhm.
it's good. Here's a mention, but if you make some changes, how do you decide what
Yeah.
changes to do without like
I
tearing your
know
hair
that
out?
was torturing. Yeah. And because they have like thousands of submission, they never tell you what was the missing aspect. They
Of
just tell
course
you
not.
resubmit it. Yeah. So yeah, of course, I didn't know what to do. I hired an editor to get their guidance, to ask them what they thought was missing.
Mm-hmm.
I applied those changes. I changed some bit the flow and the narrative. I changed a few terms that I thought was too probably mainstream for science fiction or too cliche.
Okay.
I already resubmitted the story, so I'm just waiting to hear from them.
Okay. But you didn't change any of the
Yeah.
content. You didn't like, this
No,
was too much of
I
myself.
didn't want to.
Okay, good. I love that for
Yeah,
you. But that's got to be
yeah,
like this dark little entity on your shoulder at all times. Because now that you're
yeah,
starting to get the
yeah. It's
readers
very hard.
and they're enjoying it and you're getting that feedback, like it's the constant struggle of any artist, right? Like, are you doing this for you or are you
Hmm.
doing this for them? But they like it and they like when you do this
Hmm.
thing. So do you keep doing this thing or do you explore and do your own thing? Like, just speak to that as a
Yeah,
writer, like to the
and
grander idea, to all the writers out there maybe tuning in
mhm.
or wanting to come into this field, maybe wanting to branch out and finally get brave enough to start. How do you balance that?
um, I don't know.
That's
And
an
then
honest
there's
answer.
another factor that I have to worry about as well, which is making a sustainable living.
Yup.
You have to make enough money too to be able to do this full time. So that's another factor you have to worry about. You can't just like, oh, I just want to write great books, but if you're just selling like 10 copies, I mean, you can still write if you have that privilege, and just put good stories out there in the world and not worry about not selling those books. Um, but yeah, if you want to be a uh, full-time author who's also making a living off of it. You have to worry about that financial aspect as well. So I'm still figuring it out. I don't know. I'm still trying to find balance. It's different every day to day. And for me right now, my priority, besides making a living off of it, is just putting good stories out there. It doesn't matter if it has any Indianness or if it has any women, me being a woman author, if it has enough like powerful female characters, or just that's all secondhand. I just want to put good stories out there that helps people deal with the world in a way, or I don't know.
Yeah. No, I love hearing that. Because like this channel started as a place where anybody who wanted to geek out about whatever had a space to do that.
Mhm.
And we've always said, like, if you
Right.
geek out loud, you will find your tribe. And I am a recovering
I
people
love that.
pleaser and like toxic optimist. And so over the years, as I keep repeating that on the show, there are times where I'm afraid that I am being naive when I say things like that. Like,
Mhm.
just do what you love, and then the people will be brought to you, whether that's for a job, whether that's just for sharing a hobby or art. But I'm always encouraged because every guest I come on here reiterates that fact. So do you
Mhm.
feel like that is a true statement, that if you just lean into what you love, don't do it for the viewers or the readers, but if you continue to like really
Mhm.
stay true to you and what you love and what you
Mhm.
love to write, then the rest will fall into place?
Mm, I don't want to say exactly that because I don't know. It depends on what your goals are.
Yeah.
If you're, like I said, if you're just out there to write great stories and be true, like write what you love and just put stories out there in the world, that's what you should do. But like I said, if you also want to sell books and make a living as an author, you have to, um, I don't know, also identify what people need, and then
Mm.
find like a harmonious balance between loving it but also writing something people enjoy. I don't know. Like I said, I'm still figuring that out. I do have the answer logically. Like there are lot of authors who just put books out there because they know that people will love it and they sell like hotcakes,
Yeah.
and they just end up enjoying that, doing that too, and that's fine too. People, it's just what people want. They want to be entertained, and stories are there for entertaining people. But for me personally, I'm just stuck in that zone where I'm still figuring out if I should what should be my goal, or how I can harmoniously do what I love very authentically and
Mm-hmm.
still make a living.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. That's really honest. It's a
Yeah.
completely human, honest answer. So thank you for that. I
Yeah.
guess I'm also wrestling with that personally all the time, and that's why I keep asking
Yeah.
everyone that same kind of question in different ways, just to
Mhm.
say, just to check, like, am I off base? Am I completely out of bounds here? Um,
Mhm.
I don't know the kind of answer I'm really looking for. Like, if you had said the opposite, I don't know if I would be like, yes, thank you. I needed to hear that. Um,
Yeah. But I think one great thing about just doing what you actually enjoy or doing something authentically is that there will never be that creative burnout that you
yeah,
might face if you are doing something just for others.
true.
There'll be their fulfillment where, especially for writers and artists and people who are into like non 9 to 5 jobs, um, creative burnout is real. And if you just start following that chain where you're just doing it for money or just doing it to please others, you will have that burnout, and then you lose both yourself and that channel where you make getting that validation from. So I think the one great thing about the philosophy that you said about just doing what you love is that you will not have that creative burnout. You'll be fulfilled. That's something very important as well in this world right now.
Yes, 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 it is. Like I majored in musical theater, um, and like like so many parents whose poor children come to them and say, "I want to major in musical theater," they said, "Great, what's your backup?" um, and I've wrestled with that a lot in my life. But I've had other kids, like I'm still in the theater space, and they tell me like, "What should I do? I want to do theater, but I feel like I should do something realistic." Um, but just like what you just said, the kind of advice I tell them is what I've discovered is when you pursue something you actually love, when things get hard or difficult, because you love it, you will find a creative solution. But if it was just purely for the money, if things get hard, you're gonna
Mhm.
great. I This was my sign. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then
True.
a lot of my guests on here are people that start as a hobbyist and then turn that into a career.
Hmm.
Um, and I
Hmm.
know that that is not easy. That is a really hard
Hmm.
shift in trying to find that balance. So,
Hmm.
like, talk to me in real terms. How do you like structure your day? How do you structure your life so
Hmm.
that this hobby that was started as a hobby that's now your full-time job doesn't become this full-time job monster that eats away at your creativity?
Um, so I don't know if we talked about it, but I one of the hacks that I figured out to be able to do this full time is to do ghostwriting. I do ghostwrite where I write books where my name is not on it. So that helps me sustain myself financially a little bit.
Okay.
Um, and as far as doing what I love is concerned, like writing the books that I write, I I treat it as a 9 to 5 job because I want my personal struggle had always been discipline. I have lots of
Same.
ideas. Like if I sat down and yeah, if I had good discipline and willpower, and if I sat down and applied my ideas, I could have like 50 books by now. But again, the struggle is with discipline. So I have because I'm doing it full time, I have to treat it as full time. And I'm a full time indie author. So I publish my own books, I market my own books, I manage my inventory, I do the sales, I go to all these in person events like festivals and cons and book fairs. So that's it's almost like entrepreneurship. We call it authorpreneurship. So I have to treat it as a full time job. But one great thing with my psyche is that I once I start writing, I forget about all of those technicalities and I just go at it. So it has never taken a toll on my creativity. Some days it does. Like I'm just like I wish I could just write book and now I don't have to market it. Like I wish
Yeah.
I could do that. Just write and just put the book out there and someone else does the. That's also something I am pursuing for futures. That's why I'm approaching going into that line as well, where I work with traditional publishers, so I don't have to worry about marketing and getting the books out and
Mm-hmm.
everything. But I haven't had struggle with creative burnout. I don't know. I temporary, yes, not long term. I just there are so many ideas. I just have to get it out on the paper. And in fact, it actually has helped me because before I used to just take my laptop anywhere in my balcony or on my couch and just write. But once I started doing this full time, I said, oh, need to have a desk and a set desk where I just come in every morning and I have to write. And even if I don't write, I have to do something that's related to my job, like as an author, like do a newsletter or social media or marketing or anything. So that's what I do. I come to my desk every morning. And I like writing in the morning when it's quieter, so I just write before lunch, and then
Okay.
after lunch I take care of all the other things usually. It's again not set in stone. It's always very um, diverse, and but that's what I basically do. Write from 9 to 6, or and sometimes I go to coffee shops twice a week or once a week and write there until 9, 10, 11 at night.
Do you just kind of like lose time once you start writing,
I
or
Yes,
oh,
yes. I sometimes I've like 4 hours pass by and I don't realize that I'm writing. I just see my clock and I'm shocked, like, oh, it's been 4 hours.
like I need to go to bed. What
That's
am I
only
doing?
happens with writing, not anything else.
Yeah. Is
Yeah,
there a secret
it
to like
does.
getting in the zone in that kind of way for you?
For me, I don't like listening to like lyrics, like music with lyrics. I like instrumentals like soundtracks or music without words.
Yeah.
So that's some I cannot concentrate if I have like I have words going in my ears.
Yeah.
That's the only one situation I try to create when I'm writing. Other than that, and I cannot write if it's too chaotic around, like sensory wise. Like if
Mm-hmm.
there are too many people talking or shouting or. But other than that, I no, I do enjoy like drinking caffeine if I'm writing, but it's not like a hard set requirement.
It's all about the vibes, right?
Yes.
Yes. I'm so there with you. And like I play a lot of D&D and I've been GMing a lot lately, and so like writing those things, like I don't care where I'm at, I have to have my little soundtracks going. It's got to be quiet. I usually have
Hmm.
to have something to sip on, like a coffee or whatever.
Yes. Uh-huh.
It's all about finding your
Yeah.
zone.
Hmm.
Well, we're nearly out of time today, but I want to end with
Hmm.
um, I'd love for you to give advice to anybody who's wanting to do what you do, whether that's specifically in sci fi or just wanting to write or just wanting to pursue their passion, get like be brave enough to take that next step to maybe turn it into a career or at least just start. Um, as a creative individual that's doing this full time, I commend you. That I know that's not easy, but it comes with a lot of benefits. Um, and I've always thought it's very irresponsible only to talk about the benefits, which is why
Right.
I loved your honesty tonight of sharing some of that other things that you have to wrestle with in your position,
Hmm.
uniquely in your position. So
Hmm.
pretend I'm a writer at heart. I'm not sharing my work. What do I need to know? Or what kind of advice does that person need to hear?
I'm trying to think of an advice that's already not been given because there's so much advice about writing out there. But from my experience, I think the reason uh, it took me so long to get my work out there is just because a lot of aspiring writers, especially me when I was not an author, love talking about writing instead of writing. Like there's this, and the internet culture doesn't help. Like there are these memes about, oh, um, it's the same with reading. Like there's this whole idea that, well, I love collecting books, but I don't like reading them, or which is fun. I do that too. But then there's also the thing that you are a reader because you love reading and you want to read. So you are a writer because you love writing and you want to write. So I think the only advice that I could give is just write because sometimes we are just overwhelmed by so many things like, oh, would this be good enough? Or what if this never turns into a story? Or with people, this has already been written before. What different does it make if I write it now? So I think the only roadblock to getting it out there is just keep writing, keep writing, keep writing, keep making it better. And the one magic that I've witnessed in this journey is it's unbelievable how your story transforms. Like, still, even now, I've written so many stories and it stuns me. My first draft, I wouldn't show it to my worst enemy. Like, I have a folder called Filth for my first draft. It's so bad. It's my biggest nightmare. Like, if anyone reads it, I'll die of embarrassment. It's so bad. But then that turns into a publishable story
Yeah.
over the course of I don't know how many edits, but it does. And it just doesn't happen from the mere wishing it. You have to like keep writing and keep working on it. So forget about everything. Forget about advices or anything that's on the internet or any kind of noise. Just write, 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 write. Make it better, better, better. Write, write, write. And that's I think that's the only advice that has worked for me.
Well, for someone who
Um,
self processed is bad at discipline, it sounds like you've sure cultivated it quite well.
yeah, mm, maybe, yeah.
Dhara, thank you so much
Mhm.
for this. This has been,
Thank you.
I knew it was going to be interesting, but this became interesting in a whole different level. Um, I've, I loved it. I'm going to order,
Thank you.
I think I'm trying to decide. I think I might start with the campfire stories because it sounds like they're
Yeah,
shorter.
I'll suggest. Hmm.
Easier for me to read.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
and gives me that little buffet because I have a short attention span and I like variety. But I'd love to get a sample of your writing. Speaking of sample, Dhara has
Mhm.
already shared a sample of her writing. Um, do you want to describe what you're making available to our audience today?
Oh, it's so for the LA Comic Con last year's in September, I one of my cosplays was Alice in Wonderland, but cyberpunk. So Alice in Cyberpunk Land. So I had this like circuitry leggings and LED light jacket, and instead
Sick.
of the rabbit, there was a silver Lego rabbit on my shoulder. Instead of drink me or eat me, I had a read me where I had this zines of free short stories called Alice in Cyberpunk Land. So I wrote this short story just for this cosplay. And yeah, that's this short story. It's called Alice in Cyberpunk Land. It's a 1.5 page short story for anyone to read who don't want to doom scroll or is just bored or commuting, just want to read it. And it's out there.
And it's now in the chat or it's in the description below, depending on how you're ingesting tonight's Geek Out Sesh. So go ahead and either use command free story or you can find it in the chat or in the description. Take a read and get a sample, get a taste of the Raz writing style so that you will be prompted to go to her website and go get yourself a copy of one of her published works. And I can't wait to see. Are you working on something next? What's coming next in your universe?
Um, I'm working on the second book from Unearthing Idle the Asymptote universe. But
Sequel?
yeah, it is a part of a series, but I'm still waiting on the publication of it. I'm not planning it to publish it until the probably end of the year.
Okay.
But I'm actually working on a non-science fiction project right now. I don't know if it's a big project, but non-science fiction.
Okay. Well, I'm
Yeah.
excited to see anything that comes out of your work because now that I've gotten a chance to get to know you and your style and everything that you're wrestling with, I can't wait to like read something and almost like hear that in the back of my mind. I know that I'm gonna be able to appreciate it on such a deeper level as will anybody that got a chance to tune in tonight.
Thank you so much. And I'll definitely work on those audiobooks so you don't have to sit through and read it. I know people process information differently, and
I
I would
do.
love to have my audiobooks out there too. Yeah.
Well, if I can help in any way, you just let me know. You know where to find
Yeah.
me. But all
Yeah.
of you at home, thank you so much for joining us. Do make sure you go follow the Ra. You can find her website at the command or in the description. Find her on Instagram. She's a lovely human. We did get to meet for a brief time in Mysticon, and I regret that we didn't get more time together then, because this has been wonderful. But until next time, I am Bozer,
I'm Dara.
and you just keep geeking out.
Geeking out.